Here's Andy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andy, and I am a compulsive overeater and addict. And it's interesting. I am so happy to be speaking at this meeting. And until literally I was in the meeting, I forgot the idea of telling people from my other meetings that I was going to be speaking tonight. So I have one person who's been able to join us, which I appreciate, and maybe comes here more often too. I don't know. But it's kind of nice in a way. I feel very anonymous tonight in this group. I do know a couple though, so it's nice. Um, Either way would be fine. I guess it just seems like I don't know, like a higher power thing to me. When things happen in my life that I'm not sure why they happen, I often realize later that it was my higher power giving me exactly what I needed, which I'll probably talk a little bit about. So what I want to start with saying is I'm also a member of another fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've been a member there for 29 years, and it took me 27 years to get here of that 29. And that's because I thought I could practice these principles in all my affairs when it came to overeating. I thought it could be in my step 12 work. And I thought it could be something I didn't see it as something I was powerless over. Definitely did not see it as something I was powerless over, although I recognize today that I was super, and that it's probably my very first sign of addictions. You know, I've always considered myself, I've always said this in my other meetings in the other fellowship, that I'm a switch hitter, right? Like I would say I can put down the alcohol as long as I pick up the food. I could put down the food as long as I pick up the workaholic. I could put down the workaholic if I picked up the credit cards. I could, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can add every single addiction you could think of, except for maybe gambling is the only thing for some reason I never picked up. Everything else, done it, been there, right? And even though I would say that in meetings, I still couldn't see there's something about the way I was taught or society or the norms of our society that just made me think food is something I should be able to control. It's not something I'm powerless over. You know, doctors would say things like, just eat another cookie. You know, that's what they would say to you, right? And I thought, yeah, that's easy, right? It is. It's easy. It's easy to say, right? But it's not easy to do. And that's, I think, the whole point. It's not easy to do. And so, you know, I went to an OA meeting probably about 26 years ago now, once. And it was a very strict, I think it was gray sheet, I'm not sure, meeting, and it horrified me, and I ran out of the room and never went back again. So that was my one little chance of maybe recognizing that I had this disease. And then I, again, went back to I can control. And then fast forward, you know, I've been on diets my whole life. I've, you know, always gained the weight back and more each time, or at least gained the weight back, all the weight back each time. I've done every diet probably we can all name. I was convinced, you know, that certain diets were healthier than others, and all I had to do was just do them. And I don't think I've ever remember reaching a goal. And then recently I've been realizing in high school, I restricted food. I mean, I knew this, but I never realized how significant it was until coming to these halls and listening to others. You know, I had a 500 calorie a day diet, and I thought that was perfectly fine. And I ate the same exact things every day. And I was very, very thin. Probably what would be you know, the sizes have changed, but it would probably be a size 0 today. And I thought I was huge. I thought I was humongous. And so I don't know when that turned off. I don't know when it turned on. And I don't, because I was always a little bit on the overweight going to until then. And then I don't know when it turned off, but it did. And then it just became difficult to again, see life as anything but a series of diets, basically, you know, and even going places, going to weddings, going to parties, going anywhere, you know, became about the food. You know, what are they going to serve? What's it going to be like? You know, is it going to be enough? Those kinds of things. So anyway, what happened, I'm going to fast forward to sort of right before I came into these halls. What happened is I found myself literally starting to wait till everybody in my house went to sleep, and then eating. And not just eating anything, eating hidden foods that I had stashed away for me. Some of them were in cabinets, but sometimes they were in the pockets of my winter coat or in my purse. And if I couldn't, and they were almost always very high desserty type foods, right? And if I couldn't find them, I have the benefit of living in the city of Boston, so I am less than a block away from drive-throughs where I could jump in the car in my pajamas because I didn't even have to get out and drive through and get foods that are bad for me to eat. You know, and I don't know if you have a policy of not naming foods, but I have no, I don't have to name them. You can just imagine they were all there. Everything I wanted, I could get. And, you know, I did this I started doing it more and more. My weight was going up and up. I was complaining about the fact that I didn't understand why I had lost or gained back all the weight I had lost on whatever last diet I had been on. You know, I don't know why I didn't understand. I didn't understand because I thought what I was eating when I was, you know, in front of people and people could see what I was eating was all that counted, and all this nighttime behavior, you know, calories don't count if you eat them in the dark. My mother used to say, so there you go. That's where I got that behavior. And on top of that, I will mention before I say what actually was the trigger that made me wake up, like my higher power really, you know, making me open my eyes. Before I say that, what I'll also say is I've also been very concerned always about weight and health because my dad was a compulsive overeater, although they didn't call him that back then, right? And he was obese and he had had heart attacks and a quadruple bypass and wound up with congestive heart failure and adult onset diabetes and, you know, having to have some of a foot amputated and toes amputated and wound up dying from kidney disease and congestive heart failure at 72 years old. And 72 isn't bad, I guess, in some families, but every single person on his side of the family, every single person that I can think of on his side of the family except him lived into their 90s. So clearly the disease took him out. And, you know, I have my dad's physical makeup more than my mom's, right? I mean, like my body type is more like him, etc. And I have two older sisters. One passed away 10 years ago from MS, not from this disease. But my other older sister, I see her modeling exactly his behaviors and having the same. She actually has stage 4 kidney disease now. Hopefully she'll stop, but I can't control that. So it's always been a really worry of mine, and I've always worried about it. And I'm going to be 65 in August, and my youngest is 16 years old. So if I want to live to see him have children and be a grandparent, and my other two, I have 2 girls. He's my boy, but I have 2 girls, 19, 23, and he's 16, and I'm going to be 65. So I'm old enough to be definitely at least the younger two's grandmother, and I'm their mother, and I want to be there for them. And so health is important to me. So one night at about midnight, it was about midnight actually. Interesting, it's like a Cinderella story, right? I was sitting on the couch. I had gotten my box of candy hidden in my winter coat and had put it in my pocket of my bathrobe that I was wearing. And I thought I heard my son coming down the stairs. And I panicked. I literally panicked. And I started like trying to put it away and make sure I was swallowing what was in my mouth so that he didn't see, and wiping my mouth in case there was chocolate there, and panicked and realized this is my drinking behavior. This is no different than 29 years ago. This is not okay. This is sick. This is sick. I have a sickness. Not sick, what's wrong with you? You're sick. But sick like what's wrong with you? You have a sickness and you're not doing the things you can to get the help you need. And I just, like, it was literally like my higher power was speaking to me in that moment. I never feel those like coming down, you know, person standing there or whatever figure. with a halo over its head or whatever. Never anything like that. But this was it. This was it. I literally went to an OA meeting the next morning. I knew they existed because I was in AA. And I've been coming to OA ever since. I didn't stop eating the sugar immediately. It took me, it was actually, so it's almost been 2 years because this is May. It was the end of May, when I started coming to meetings, and it was July 1st that I finally, cause I said things like, I think I can just stay within my calories. And as long as it's within my calories, I can eat what I want. And, I started hearing about red light foods, and I started hearing about, the alcoholic foods. Those are the words that really helped me as an alcoholic, that these are my alcoholic foods. They really affect me like alcohol. And so it was July, finally stopped eating anything with sugar in it, or sugar, sugar like, all those different words that really are sugars, in the first 5 ingredients. If it's ingredient 6 or 7, I usually don't worry. But honestly, I've come to the point now where what I've realized is, if there's that many ingredients that I'm finding sugar that far down, there's probably too much junk in it anyway, and it's not a natural food, and I tend to stay away from it. I mean, salad dressings and things like that might be an exception, but with that exception, I mostly stay away from it. I do, and what I found in the program is, first of all, learning that I am powerless over the foods I'm addicted to. I really am powerless, and I'm actually powerless over all food, even the ones I'm not addicted to. If the timing is right and the mood is right, as I've heard other people say, I can overeat lettuce, I can overeat broccoli, I can overeat anything. So I have to ask my higher power for help every time I sit down for a meal, before I sit down for the meal, or I can eat too much, so that I do ask my higher power to help me keep my serving sizes what they should be for me, for my weight, height, etc. I haven't, I know some people are like 100-pounders. I've heard those stories. I love those stories. Didn't have 100 pounds to lose coming in, by the grace of God, not even grace of God, because I think just by coincidence, whatever. I've lost a little. One of the things I'm struggling with right now is, and I talked with my sponsor a lot about it, and we've talked about the fact that sometimes, actually we just had this conversation today, sometimes you just have to make adjustments, and it's figuring things out as you go along. I haven't lost any weight in the past almost year and a half. I haven't gained any weight, but I haven't lost any weight. And so, because I know it's not a diet program, and I want to concentrate on the inside me, and I feel healthy. A huge thing happened 2 years ago when I started here. I didn't even realize it until after I started, but I had my doctor's appointment like the month after, and I found out I was pre-diabetic. My A1C was in that pre-diabetic range. And 2 years later, I think it was about a month ago now, I had a doctor's appointment, and I am no longer pre-diabetic. My A1C is in the normal range. So and the only thing I can say I've done differently really is not eat sugar, and also I'm starting to look at simple carbs, not things like sweet potatoes or things like that. I do eat, but I'm no longer eating like white pasta, things like that. I've just decided, well, I didn't just decide, with working with my sponsor and thinking about my health and thinking about I've added those to my list of red light foods, and they may not be forever. They're not something I tended to overeat, but I think they just also don't help me. And so it's amazing to me that, my health is better. And like I said, well, I do still want to, I still want to lose weight. I want to be in that not considered obese range. But I also know that I'm doing things correctly, and I will adjust when I feel like adjusting is needed. And I work with my doctor as well, not just, I happen to have a doctor who's really good with nutrition, so don't feel I need a nutritionist with her. She's just great at that stuff and realistic about it, which I love. And it's been kind of a miracle, all of it, as they say in the program. And one of the things that just happened last night, and I happened to be talking to somebody that pointed out to me that was my higher power. And I was like, wait, you're right, it is. I run a family childcare, and I belong to a group of family childcare providers, and we had our end of year dinner last night. It was like catered in. People brought some home cooked food, and I had no problem with the dinner at all. It was, there was things there I could eat, and there was things there that I wasn't going to eat, and I didn't. And to surprise everybody, they brought an ice cream truck onto the property, and so everybody could go get ice cream. And again, no problem. I'm really in a place where my session's been removed.
5 minutes.
Thank you. I had no desire to get up and get it or anything. But the interesting thing that happened was there was about 35 to 40 people there, and 3 women who I care about and know well from the years that we've been doing business together and working together, right? And who all, not a judgment, but reality, a clear beast category like me, and who I worry about because they're all around my age also. 3 women. I happened to be sitting where people had to walk by me to get to the ice cream truck and come back again by me. And each one, as they walked by me, said to themselves, but I heard them, something interesting. And what I thought afterwards, this is where my higher power comes in. The first one said something like, oh, it's only this one. I'm just going to eat this one. And I thought to myself, if I ate that one, I'd be off to the races. I don't even need one. The next person walked by me and said something to the effect of, trying to remember exactly, you know what? It's just once in a while, and I had a hard day. I deserve this. And I thought to myself, which is kind of amazing, because usually I was thinking, I deserve better than that. I deserve better. I'm like literally getting goosebumps telling you this, because I'm realizing it was my higher power. First of all, they were talking to themselves, I think. I don't even think, maybe they weren't even talking. Maybe I just heard it, but I think they were talking. And they didn't know I heard them. They weren't talking to me. And I forget what the third one said, but it was something along the same lines of like, oh, I don't care. I'm just going to have it. I think it was something like that, because I remember thinking to myself, I care about me. I deserve better. I care about me, and I don't even need just one. You guys have done that for me. The fellowship, my higher power, working the 12 steps, I would not be, I know it sounds like, it does. It sounds dramatic to me, but I would not be here without all of that, because I would not be thinking that way. That would not happen. So that's where I am today. I'm still working on, sometimes eating, a little bit too much at a meal. Definitely buffets are hard still, even if it's healthy food. I'm still working on, if I fall asleep on the couch late at night and wake up, that, I don't need to grab something before I go to bed. I usually don't now. I have it every once in a while where I do. And even though it's not an alcoholic food, I see it as an alcoholic behavior, because it's not what I should be doing. And I'm going to keep coming. I'm going to keep working. And I can't wait to hear from you guys, because it's a lot of new people in the room that I haven't heard before. So thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for letting me share. I really appreciate it.